Hello everyone, I am the Weather Dude. Welcome back, and today we're going to be talking about our November outlook, just showing you a bunch of maps to show what your November could be like. Before I get started, however, be sure to like and subscribe so you do not miss out on future videos like this. And we're just going to get started. We're going to be looking at the sea surface temperature anomalies because we know that those can definitely influence the weather patterns that we have, and not just talking about the NSO patterns either, which that, by the way, is on the trending towards the La Nina side, right? We're like in between a weak and moderate La Nina right now. Now, one thing you do notice that's been different from the past couple years is actually the Gulf of Alaska has actually been below average. So what that's been allowed to happen is we've seen troughing coming into the west, and that's why we've been seeing that big atmospheric river steered right into Washington, Oregon, California. So the west has been having a stormy pattern, but yet at the same time, the eastern U.S. is about to get pretty cold. Right? And we're going to be talking about why that is, because sometimes the jet stream can sort of dip down like this, and if it ridges over the central, it can kind of drop out over the east. But usually, when we see warmer than average waters in the Gulf of Alaska, that could push the jet stream up and down over the eastern United States, right? And we're probably going to see ridging over there because the waters in the East Coast and the Gulf are warmer. So that's going to push the jet stream like up this way, keeping the cold air, over the lower 48. All right, so those are the sea surface temperatures, how they're lining up. Now, the Climate Prediction Center, this was they're posted every afternoon, so there'll probably be one today. This is from November 5th to the 9th. As you can see, below normal temperatures, the greatest likelihood, all right, the highest probability of that will be in the southeast and mid-Atlantic. But of course, pretty much like the eastern half-ish of the country will be seen below normal temperatures, while the western half will be starting to warm up again. And then West Alaska is going to be a little cooler. Maybe Eastern Alaska could be a bit warmer. Then on the chain on the southeast part of the state, could you see there's a slight chance of below normal temperatures. Again, that's from November 5th to the 9th. If we look now for the precipitation, along the East Coast, there's a slight chance of above normal precipitation, but most of the United States, even the Ohio Valley, the central, even parts of the Four Corners, below average precipitation. The greatest likelihood, highest probability, will be over the Great Lakes regions, as well as New Mexico and West Texas. And then, of course, still seeing above average precipitation in northeastern Alaska and in the northwestern United States. Now we look a little bit further out in time, November 7th to the 13th. Eastern seaboard down to the southeast still looks like below normal temperatures. Now, of course, because we're going farther out in time, the probabilities are going to be a little bit lower anyway. For example, before it was like 50, 60 plus, or 60 to 70, well, now it's 40 to 50% because we're going farther out in time. Southern half of Alaska looks to be slightly or slight probability of below normal temperatures, as well as Washington and Oregon coastline there. But again, the Ohio Valley, central U.S., Four Corners looks to be above average for temperatures. And if we look to precipitation, now it starts to get a bit drier in the east. You can see, with the exception of South Florida, and then central U.S. kind of dry, and then still above average precip there in the west. And then, of course, southern Alaska could be seasonal below average temperatures. Now, that pretty much takes you through the middle of November, but don't worry, that's not the only thing I'm going to be showing today. Don't worry. We got more on the way. Now, the Arctic oscillation, right, the oscillations that usually do update every day, is below the zero line right now. It will be through the next few days. So that does mean cooler air and colder air could be infiltrating into the eastern United States. That could eventually go back up again by the time we say November 5th to the 10th. But remember that there is a lag time, right? It's not going to be like as soon as the Arctic oscillation drops, or like if it drops, then we're going to see cold air immediately. That's not necessarily the case. And the same thing for when it goes up. We won't see warm air in the east immediately. It's going to take time. So by middle of November, maybe things will moderate, because as the Arctic oscillation goes back up. And of course, it's the opposite for you guys in the west. If once it goes back up, you guys could be back to your cooler and wetter pattern once again. The NAO, however, does remain low, even below the zero line, probably as these ensemble forecasts say for right now, potentially through the middle of November, all right, maybe even beyond that. So we'll be definitely looking at, like, if we go down to the forecast down here, all right, you can see the median, right? See how it's kind of like, or excuse me, the means to the left, I'm sorry, negative 0.4, right, negative 0.3, so it remains negative, even negative 0.2, all the way down to the 14-day forecast. All right, so it's going to be going, I mean, it's down right now. It will be trending upward, but still staying down overall. But the one that's most appealing, of course, is the PNA. Again, that's also going to be above the zero line, on the above side. All right, As you can see, back in August, it was pretty high. Of course, pretty much a positive PNA means the same thing a negative NAO or a negative AO would mean, right? Cooler air over the east, higher chance of snow, you could say. I'm not guaranteeing snow, but higher chance of it. And then in the western U.S., it would be warmer air, and then the opposite would be true, vice versa. All right, so again, look at the PNA. It is up, but will be trending down. 0.12, 0.10 as we head towards a 10-day forecast, and going back up, 0.11. So higher number, more positive, so over the 14-day stretch. All right, so that's kind of like a breakdown of the oscillations for you. This is the Weather Channel, the weather company, IBM's kind of November temperature outlook. They, as far as I can tell, they only released a temperature outlook. So the West Coast looks to be a little bit cooler, right? And the jet stream, again, because we see those cooler sea surface temperatures in the Gulf of Alaska, that will push the jet stream up like this. So that puts the immediate West Coast in that cooler pattern. But you don't have to go too far in to the four corners of the central U.S. where it starts to get warmer. You might think, okay, so the jet stream goes all the way up here and dips down here. So why is the southeast predicted to be cooler? And that's because we could see potentially an influence maybe of a subtropical jet that could come through and kind of keep the southeast and the Ohio Valley slightly cooler. And this also does put the northeast region maybe in some warmer temperatures. Now, again, as like the Climate Prediction Center, all right, actually, this is actually different because I think the darker colors mean you could be significantly more above average than in the lighter colors. So I think this actually means differently, all right? Because like the light blue, for example, by their terms means slightly below average, while the darker blue means below average. And then if there was a purple shading, which there isn't in this case, but it would mean much below average. So I guess for this map, it does mean the darker color you are, the more quote-unquote radical the temperature difference could be. But for the Climate Prediction Center map, just know that does mean, that's not what that means, right? On the Climate Prediction Center map, if it's a darker shade, it just means a higher likelihood. All right, let's get to some models now, right? We got the Canadian model here up first, so you can kind of see the pattern over the next 10 days to 2 weeks or so. All right, and we got some other models lined up as well. All right, so here's the Canadian model, and you can see what's happening, right? We're seeing blocking, right? High pressure over the Arctic region, right, and northern Canada. So if we got high pressure building in there, warmer air building in there, all right, not only is that high pressure going to send cold air down into the eastern United States, but if the high pressure is sitting up here, that means that cold air is nowhere else to go, as well as storm systems, right? Storm systems have to track this way now as well, all right? So if storm systems can't get into here, they're going to go down into the United States, and that's what's going to happen at least probably through the first 10 to 14 days in November. All right, we're more confident about the first half of November being cold in the east, maybe warmer in the west, maybe cooler slightly on the, again, like on the immediate west coastline. All right, so let's keep this going here, and you can see that we continue to see that high pressure, all right, that's going to be building over Canada, and that's going to, here's another storm system that have to get pushed into the United States. So that's what's going to be happening there, and this only goes out to like November 10th or so. All right, so you can see there's our next big storm system coming into the west. All right, because again, it can't go into Canada because there's a high pressure blocking it, so it has to go this way. So that's kind of like how the storm tracks, of course, influenced by that. GFS model here, all right, you can see that again, at first it's like the western-ish half of Canada and the Arctic that sees that high pressure influence, like kind of like right in there. And it still pushes the storms this way, but eventually, the Canadian kind of said the same thing. Eventually, that's going to take over the entire Arctic, so the storms really have nowhere else to go but down this way, right? I mean, you got one storm system here on the 8th. We got another one here in the Gulf of Alaska. I mean, getting ready to come into the United States, right? Notice the one by Alaska. All right, notice how it sort of drops south, right? There's a little piece of that. It kind of drops south along with this, right? And they're going to kind of merge together. Maybe a Miller B nor'easter. I don't know yet. All right, but that's just what the GFS is putting out right now for on November 14th. All right, so again, they can't go into Canada because it got the major blocking high there, so it has no choice but to go south. All right, so, and as it happens, more storms going to be coming into the United States, maybe more severe weather for areas that are too warm to see snow, and if the conditions set up right. And for areas that are cold enough in the north, you could see some snow. But just remember, this is not December, January, February quite yet. So I'm not expecting any like major snowstorms for low-lying areas, but mountainous areas. It is November, so you guys should definitely be gearing up for some snow potentially. For example, the Appalachian Chain, it's possible. We got a chance of it in the next couple of storm systems. If it gets cold enough, because cold air is definitely expected with this. All right, and I'll be showing that in a little bit. All right, but first, let's move on. We got the European and the CFS, and then we'll start going over some. Of course, this is the high pressure, low pressure. This isn't like a temperature module by any means. All right, that'll be coming up in a little bit. This just shows the high pressure and low pressure. So here's the European model. Now remember, every click I do is 24 hours, as you can see on the right there. So again, pretty much a similar setup, right? We have ridging up. So even though, right, this is why it's such a unique setup, because normally you would think, okay, if I have troughing in the Gulf of Alaska, right, then I'm going to have ridging over the eastern United States and it kind of comes down like this. That would be normal, yes. But because we have such a sharp dip in the jet stream over the Gulf of Alaska, that's allowed to go up like this over the west and yet still allow the east to be in a more troughing pattern, if that makes sense, right? Because if the jet stream was slightly more flat, we would have the jet stream come down like this, up like this, and down like this, and most of the central and eastern United States would be warm, but that's not the case. All right, so this is unique. So normally this pattern like wouldn't happen because, again, like I just said, normally if the Gulf of Alaska is troughing, then the central and east would be ridging, and the western U.S. would be troughing as well. So pretty unique pattern we have in place right now. And again, maybe some colder air and another storm system right there on the 6th, another one getting ready to enter in because it cannot, sure as heck can't go into Canada or the Arctic because we got the blocking patterns there. All right. And then maybe it starts to erode away a little bit on the 10th, but even still, we still have a storm system down there or some lower pressure at least for the southeast and the mid-Atlantic. Now, onto the CFS model, all right? So this is from the 31st to the 7th, and you can see they have a major storm out there in the Gulf of Alaska. Very low pressure and very high pressure, very high pressures over there in western central Canada that digs the trough down all the way into the eastern United States. Got one area here, one area here. All right, so this is for the 31st to the 7th. All right, now according to the CFS, we could see a change towards the middle of November. Now they're thinking maybe some troughing over the west and some ridging over the east. All right, so the ridging moves farther south. That could happen. Now, once we get to this point, now do keep in mind, this is when the colors, they start to trend more orange and red because you're going farther out in time. But focus on what the lines are doing, right? Notice how the lines are slightly, I know it's hard because of the angle of the photo, but the lines are ever so slightly edging downward still. So this does still result in troughing through the central and eastern United States. Notice the lines are bending ever so slightly upward across the west. That still means we have ridging over there. All right, I know it's hard to read and identify, right? But even still, look at the 28th to the 5th, right? Look at the lines, how they're still trying to dip down, which means some troughing over the east. All right, so this could last for a longer period of time. All right, again, we got high pressure up here. Maybe that creates some more troughing in the eastern United States. So according to the CFS, this pattern may last intermittently. I'm not going to say it's going to last like through middle December all the way, but intermittently could last till December. That's something we'll definitely be watching out for. All right, so here we go, going through the month of November. We got the temperature map loaded, right? And as you can see the cold air is dominating. I mean, we're talking about 10 to 20 degrees below average in some of these spots here, according to the Canadian model, right? Notice this dominates through November 6th across the east, right? I mean, even here in the mid-Atlantic today, I mean, it's pretty cold. I mean, it's been in the 50s most of the day. I mean, it's not significantly colder than what it should be, but I would say it's definitely slightly cooler than what should be for this time of year. Notice the Arctic and at least northern Canada is warm, right? And so, again, that cold air really has nowhere else to go but to the south and to the east, right? And eventually, again, maybe warm air tries to build in behind it, but even still, the southeastern United States is still cold by November 10th. And then we have another low pressure here spiraling with a pocket of cold air. You can see right in there, and the rotating low is right in there. If I get rid of this, right, you can almost see how it's kind of rotating inside of this pocket of cold air. All right, so that's a Canadian model, only goes out 10 days. We have the GFS model that goes out 16 days, so a bit of a treat for you. So here's the GFS model. Again, going through November 5th, still got the cold air over the central and the east, right? This is like a few days still. So we got to have a few days of this, and even still, maybe even through November 10th, 11th-ish, maybe towards Veterans Day. Now, according to them, the GFS model, the south central and southeast gets a little cold burst there on the 14th. All right, so this is definitely something to keep an eye on and keep watch for through the middle of November. Florida still looks a little bit cooler through November 16th. And look at this. look at this low pressure right here. Look how dynamic this looks. Got cold air on the back side, warm air on the front side. So that's another big system that's getting ready to drop in. I mean, you could just tell by looking at the spiral and the temperature graphic. You could just tell how it looks. And I think that's really amazing to see. European model, now keep in mind, this is through 5,000 feet. Still going to get an idea of what's happening though, even though, because the surface map really isn't on this website. But you can see through November 3rd, look at the cold air over the upper Midwest and the Northeast. We still got the significantly warm air over western portions of Canada and the Arctic, right? Now look at that. Look how it continues to build in over Canada, and that's going to keep the cold air in the United States here, central and eastern portion at least, all right? Even through November 5th, right? And that continues to dominate all the way through. According to the European model, warm air over Canada. Now the cold air gets pushed a bit farther, more towards the southeast and northeast, maybe warms up a little bit according to this. All right, and they got like a string of cold air coming back into the northwest. Definitely something to keep our eyes on, at least for the first half of November. Expect some colder air in the central and the east. After middle of November, kind of gets uncertain. Maybe things can moderate a little bit and change again by the end of November. So hopefully you guys got an idea of what you can expect for November. Thank you guys so much for watching. I am the Weather Dude signing off. Till next time, I will catch you guys in the next video.